having a conversation with David Adickes, and David is a world-renowned artist all over the world. Thankfully, we live in Houston, and he happens to also live in Houston, so we have this opportunity to talk with Mr. Adickes. While you're known as a painter, and perhaps most famously known for the Sam Houston sculpture, the monumental sculpture on 45 in Huntsville, Texas. One of the reasons that I was particularly excited to talk with you today was that when I first moved to Houston, Texas in 1988, I went to downtown Houston and I saw this marvelous sculpture, a very large-scale sculpture. I think it's probably like 30 feet or so, called Virtuoso.
32 feet, yeah.
32 feet. Yeah. So I was like, this is incredible. So, and it's like, one day I have to I actually told myself, I will have to meet this artist. Yeah. And today we're doing just that. It took a while, but we're there. But since then, you did the Sam Houston piece, which again I mentioned is what you're primarily known for. But today's conversation is really going to be about the music and your interest in music and how you've incorporated music into your artwork. Yeah. And we'll go from there. So we'll talk about Virtuoso that I mentioned earlier. You have another piece that is in Galveston, Texas, called Coronet. Yeah,
Stone Coronet.
Stone Coronet, and then of late, we've been seeing the Beatles. Yeah. Okay. That is also here in Houston. So the three major pieces of work that we're going to be talking about are in the Houston metropolitan area. Yeah. But you might have other ones that you can tell us about, and then also in looking at your work, some of your paintings. Yeah. I realized that there were musical themes as well. Yeah. You know, whether it's a flute player, primarily flute, and interestingly,
clarinet,
flutes as well.
Yeah,
okay.
I did a portrait of Louis Armstrong.
Oh, is that right?
For a chariot.
Okay.
Auction. Yeah. Yeah. Well, music was my first love, long before art. Okay. In school, I was in the high school band. I played clarinet. I never had more fun. I'm a sort of flaming heterosexual. I love girls.
Is that right? Okay. So we should go ahead.
Yeah, and so playing in the band was so much fun. Okay. We'd go to football games out of town, driving back home in the band bus. Okay. A lot of fine smooching going on. Okay. Anyhow, but
when was this? What decade are we talking about here?
1941, 2 or 3.
Okay.
But anyhow, I love music.
Excellent.
And but I love painting too. And the first painting I ever painted was a portrait of Frank Sinatra, and then one of my dad.
Your very first painting was of a musician,
yeah.
Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was a big hero for me. But then I got in the Army and ended up studying a lot of science. I went to A&M for a year and then LSU for a year. So I had a lot of hours in mathematics, calculus, physics. So when I wanted to get a college degree, just sort of get that behind me.
Sure.
The closest one to me was majoring in math and physics. So I have a double major,
in physics?
In math, physics.
And math.
Right. Oh, wow. From Sam Houston State Teachers College, it was called then.
That's what it was called.
Now it's Sam Houston State University. Okay. So with that, then I went on and went to France with my GI Bill. I was in World War II. You remember that one? It was in all the papers, that war. Yeah. Well, I was in the very end of it, enough to earn 2 years and 3 months with GI Bill. Okay. You know what that is. And so for the first 3 months, I went to Kansas City Art Institute. I had a brother that lived there, and I wanted to go there anyway. Some of the big painters were teaching there. Big names, that Thomas Hart Benton, for example, was one. And so I went to school there. And going to an art school, as opposed to university, was a revelation. I mean, it was fun. It was loose. I mean, you could spill stuff on the floor. You could da-da-da. So that made me realize that was the kind of life I really wanted. that an artist like. So with my 2 years left on the GI Bill, I went straight to France and
to study, to continue
to study with Bernard Léger, one of the big names.
Correct.
One of the big names for 2 years. Then came back to Houston in 91, 51, in 1951, and started painting professionally. And I taught 2 years at the University of Texas. Taught painting there for 2 years, from 55 to 57.
Okay.
Other than that, I've been doing nothing but painting and sculpture.
Since.
And at the end of the 2 years in Austin, I decided to go around the world by myself, take 2 years to do it. So I had enough money soaked away to get on a boat and go to Yokohama and go to Japan. I lived in Japan 1 year.
Okay. While you were in Japan, what were you doing?
Painting.
You were painting.
Painting. And looking around. It's a great country to travel in Japan. And I had a great girlfriend. So then
Did she travel with you at the time?
Around Japan?
Yes.
Yeah. No, then I left. My intention was to stay 1 year in Japan and 1 year for the rest of the world. And so that was sort of Mein Kampf, you know. So when the year finished in Japan, 360 days, I booked a boat to Hong Kong. And she said, "Aren't you happy here?" I said, "I've never been happier. Why are you leaving?" I said, "Mein Kampf." You know, she said, that was my plan. So if the rest of the world did anything like this, you know. So anyhow, the rest of the world was not like that, but the rest of the world was good. So then I went on, stopped in Bali and Bangkok, every place you name, the major capitals.
Sure.
And ended up in Stockholm, and then down to France and bought a studio in France, an art studio in Antibes down the coast.
Okay.
So then I spent the next few years going back and forth to Antibes, 3 months here. I'd have a show in December here and be back for Christmas and family. And then by February, I was back in France again.
So you're going back and forth from Houston to France.
Okay. And Antibes is on the Riviera. It's
sure.
Halfway between Cannes and Nice. You just can't beat it. So, terrible life I'm living, you know. I missed Houston summer. That went on for several years. And then I got married and to a girl from Fort Worth, and we lived in France. And she wrote this book here. She wrote that book.
This piece. Okay.
That was the first book I published. I lived
this was published prior to the Mitchell book?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was 62 and that was 68. That was black and white.
Sure.
This was in color.
Okay. Very good. Go ahead.
But it's beautifully written. She was right out of Vassar. She just graduated from Vassar, so she knew all the 6-syllable words and used words like dichotomy, you know, stuff like that. We didn't talk that way and walk about it. And so I said, I want to do this book. Well, I lived in Barcelona in 53 for a year, and one of my best friends' father had a publishing company, a big one.
In Barcelona.
In Barcelona. And so he even used paintings of mine on the covers of certain books that had nothing to do with art. I've got the books there. He had all my reproductions, so he said, "Can we use it?" Sure. But yeah, he published this book, and then I showed this book to Mitchell, who knew Sandra, who wrote this one. Okay. And Mitchell said, "I'd love to do a book about you, but it won't be as good as Sandra is." and it wasn't. In fact, we had this one translated into French by the gal who taught her friend, and it's so beautiful. It's better in French than in English, actually. Okay. I said, "Sandra, you
this is the English version?
This is the English front and French in the back."
In French in the back, okay.
I said, "Sandra, you suffer in the original. The French is everything." So then when I did Michener's, I took it to the same girl to translate, and she translated and says, "This just doesn't work. It just doesn't fly in French." Okay. So in this book, the French is Sandra's version from this book.
From this one, okay.
And the English is Michener's from.
But they featured contain some of the same art pieces, right? Some of the
no,
are they all different?
All different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all after these.
Okay.
And so that's the story of that book. Excellent. There.
Now, if you look at your volume of work, about how many pieces of work do you think you've painted?
Oh, that's a question that all artists ask themselves. at least about 5,000. Because I've got 600-700 of them right here.
That are still with you in
Yeah,
your own
my
collection.
foundation in Huntsville's got
Okay.
650, and right here in this building here, probably
Okay.
100 if I go upstairs and count. So, a lot.
Okay.
I've been prolific.
Absolutely. And then obviously, now many of those pieces are music oriented, themed. So I want to go back to that music conversation that we were having.
Yeah.
So you said in high school you were in band.
I was in a band.
And you played the clarinet. Okay. And then in college were you in band
And
as
I
well?
I was in the marching band at A&M.
In marching band.
But at Sam Houston, I was not.
You were not. So what did you play at Texas A&M?
The clarinet.
Clarinet as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my only instrument.
Okay, so that you mentioned that you've mentioned your foundation that's now in Huntsville. You actually bought your old high school and have now turned it into a museum.
Yeah.
And if I'm recalling this properly, I think I heard somewhere where you said one of the reasons you bought it was because that's where you learned to dance, to jitterbug.
Yeah. To me, the building is historic.
Mm-hmm.
You can't destroy a building where we learned to jitterbug.
That's right.
It was for sale. They were going to bulldoze it,
Mm-hmm.
and they got a $95,000 estimate. That's a lot of money for a small school district.
Sure.
And somebody said, "Why don't we just sell it?"
Mm.
Duh. You know, when I heard it was for sale, I raced up to Huntsville,
Mm-hmm.
never exceeding 65 miles an hour,
Good
of course, and bought it on the spot for cheaper than I'd buy a garage apartment in Montrose. It's a whole square block.
Correct.
1.4 acres. The building's floor space total are 80,000 square feet. The roof was bad. It was built 1 year after I was built. No, I was built in 27. It was built in 31. So it was
1 year after
I was born.
you were born.
I was
Okay.
built, yeah.
Okay.
I was built 9 months before 1927, and it was built in 31. Anyhow, we had to do some repair on the roof and one thing and another, but it was a wonderful old building. So I took what had been the gym and the auditorium, in the meantime, had been converted to school rooms, and laid down 5,000 square feet of carpet. And the concept when I bought it was to save it. And secondly, that great storage, man, a big empty building, everybody's got. So I started taking paintings up there and putting them on the wall in a gym. And I thought, let's try those on the wall. On the
Sure.
side. So I said, oh, these look pretty good. So then I decided to go ahead and make a gallery of it.
Okay. So that was not your original intention. The
No.
original intention was we have to save this historic
Right.
building.
What-
One,
yeah.
you went to school there.
Yeah.
Second, you learned to dance there.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously you played clarinet while
Yeah,
you were there
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So now, fast forward to today, it is now the Adickes
It's foundation.
Art Foundation.
Yeah.
But it will be in the form of a museum where the public will be able to visit? Or?
The public's been able to visit for the last 6 or 7 years,
Okay.
but by appointment only because there's no traffic. There's no way to keep it open every day. Nobody would come. So my friend Linda, that wrote this book right here, lives in Huntsville, and she's the curator of the museum. So she opens it for occasions, and there are a lot of those. Every week or so, there's a group coming by from somewhere. And so
Great.
But now I've just sold the building to Sam Houston State University.
Oh, really?
Right. And they are really making it nice. They're building an elevator, and we've redone the outside. Roof is all new. They're going to really make a nice building out of it.
Will they retain it as your foundation's museum?
I have the right to stay there for 3 years
Okay.
as my museum. After that, I'm supposed to be out.
Okay.
And they've already turned the basement into an entomology museum. They have a museum there in an old cinema, movie house.
Okay.
It was too small. So now they've already got that going. It's perfect for that. And the other rooms will be classrooms
Okay.
to do with art. So I'm there for 3
They'll
years.
name it the David Adickes Building.
Probably
Is that
not.
part of your
There's a
agreement?
there's a big sign in front that says Adickes Foundation.
Correct.
By the way, if you do like to Google, if you look up addicksfoundation.com, the whole story of it, the 100 pages of painting, the picture of the front of it and all that stuff. It's a wonderful building. It's a great building.
It is. I've
Right
seen
in Mark,
photos and
downtown.
Okay.
I had to walk to lunch about 6 o'clock. Huntsville's a small town, and it was 5,000 when I grew up there.
Okay.
Great place to grow up.
Excellent. So now let's kind of shift a bit from Frank Sinatra to now, you know, a lot of people, quite frankly, don't know that you are also a painter.
I know that.
They know you primarily as a sculptor for these huge monumental pieces.
Right,
and like I mentioned earlier, one of the first ones that I became familiar with was the virtuoso downtown. Tell us about how that became. What's the story behind that?
Joe Russo, who built the building, was a friend, a banker, and he collected my paintings.
Okay.
And he knew I did small sculptures. And he said, would you like to do a big sculpture for this building? And I said I would. So he said, it's got to be the 7 arts theme, because it's in the art district, and I want my clientele to be all the offices for the opera and the ballet and all that stuff. So I designed a shelf kind of thing that had the 7 arts. I had 3 dancers up here and a musical conductor here. And down here I had a cellist. Oh, and I had the model of the cellist, which is the same as that one outside.
Sure.
And he came here and he said, that's enough. We don't need to. He was right. It's much better than...
It's a case of less is more.
Yeah. So I made it, I manufactured it in the factory of a friend that was a school buddy that made the oil pressure tank. So he had a big place and welders and all that out off of, not close by. And so that's where we made it in pieces and took it down there and erected it. Gosh, that took all day, and 3 cranes and all that. It's in pieces. The neck and the head are separate pieces. The bow, of course, and the rest of the body. So anyhow, people love it. You know, they moved it 8 feet.
Well, they recently, there was some remodeling done
last
in
year,
that building.
yeah.
In fact, the building is called the Lyric Center.
Yeah.
Right?
Was
it always called the Lyric Center?
Right.
Okay.
And the reason the cello is called virtuoso, because Joe Russo likes the name Virtuoso.
I see.
So that's how.
Was he a musician as well? Or just
No, he's a land guy, a banker.
Okay.
Yeah. But
he loved music or the arts for sure.
Oh, he loved the arts, right? Yeah.
So that particular piece, the focal point is the cello, the cellist, but behind the cellist, you have additional musicians there. So
the 3 guys right behind him.
Okay.
They're just this far away. Flute, violin, and the bass.
Okay.
And those 3 inspired me to do the Beatles, because I always wanted to do several musicians. Many years later, I thought I like to
decades later
musician.
Right. So that was decades later.
Oh, yeah.
The virtuoso was done in
84.
84. Okay.
Yeah, decades later.
Okay.
And I thought, why not do the Beatles? They're 4 instead of 3, but I love everything about them. I'm a big Beatles fan, and so that led to doing the Beatles.
Okay.
And the Beatles now are in 8th Wonder in Edo. Have you ever seen them at night?
I have. I've seen it lit up. In fact, I first saw it when it was when you had Summer Street.
Yeah.
And I went to a festival there.
Yeah.
And they were there used to be a Summer Street Summerfest. They would do a summer festival there.
Right.
And I was like in awe when I first saw them because they're gigantic.
Yeah.
They were like 80. How many feet?
They're 36 feet.
36 feet tall. And then they were not lit. I don't believe.
No. They were white. Okay. And when I took them to 8th Wonder, they were white. They were just there. Okay. And those guys took it upon themselves to go get LED lighting, color light, and they installed the light. And man, when I heard about it and saw it, I was really overwhelmed. And that was